to the world of Terramentia. Today, we're going to take you on a journey of building a character, and the class we chose was the Flame Warden. We're going to lean into martial abilities and augment them with some of the flame schools of magic. This is a character that has, multiple routes it can go. It can be a great hybrid. It can be a pure fire caster, doing a ton of fire damage, but kind of limited by the amount of schools of magic it has, focusing basically on fire and dragon aspects. So today we're going to lean into the dragon aspects and augment our martial abilities with flame. First, we have an update for you guys. Our goal is to be published by the end of the year. We did not meet our Kickstarter goal, but we're going to have a little bit less art in the book than what we had hoped, or actually a lot less art. But we are so confident in the games it stands on its own. So we're going to get you as much art as we can, and then we will let you know how you're going to be able to purchase our game come January 2024. Dates could be subject to change, but this is our timeline as of now, and it's looking pretty good. Okay, so we're going to go from level 1 to level 6. Level 6 is where we really get some big power-ups. All classes do, as they gain 3 action points at that time, as well as usually some extra damage abilities on top of that. So there's a lot of choices for us to make at level 1. First, we're going to start with our name. We named our character today Curix. He is a Vicana. His class is Flame Warden. He has a movement of 30 feet. The racial benefits we're going to get from being a Vicana, besides having really cool gold and black braided hair, I think we're maybe even like shaved up a little on the sides, letting those elvish ears come out, and hair back in gold and black braids. Maybe our game master will be nice enough to give us some sort of cool dragon helmet that those braids can flow out of later levels. We'll do some begging. All Vicana have astrological destiny. We can gain +1 non-weapon or armor specialization at character creation. This is our choice. We gain Heritage of the Stars. Once per day, we can commune with the sun or moon to learn its location. This could possibly help us with navigation or, in bizarre circumstances, helping us understand the time of day. We gain Gift of the Sun, which is going to make us resistant to solar damage. We have the standard 30 feet movement for almost all classes. We speak the common tongue, and we speak Elvish. And then the big one we really wanted here for today's class was we gain Ornate Savagery. Utilizing our intellectual and physical prowess that the Vicana respect, we know exactly where to strike our opponents. We're going to gain an extra 1d6 damage of our weapon or spell's damage type, in addition to dealing critical damage when we critically strike. Remember, critically striking is achieved by rolling doubles on our 2d12 when rolling to attack. Now we're going to start with 2 action points like everyone does. So our first choices to make are core attributes. But we have 2 points to spend here, and we're going to put 1 into life force and 1 into mind. The reason I did this is we want to be a little bit good at both. We're going to be leaning in and focusing on life force, but we don't want our mind to be left too far behind, as it's going to help increase our willpower and our mana pools. The mana pool will be more important to this build since we're primarily going the martial route versus the pure caster. Our next choice is we have 4 points to put into main attributes, with a maximum of 2 points being put into any one main attribute. I chose 2 strength, 1 intellect. The strength is so, we can hit hard with our weapons, and the intellect is to help boost our willpower. I liked this choice not only for this class, but also for the race, since the Vicana really respect somebody that is good with their physical prowess and their mental prowess. Then we're going to skip down to our character background. I didn't dive too far into this today. For demonstration purposes, I just put a small blurb. We're from Sunflow City. We grew up enamored with reading books about the ancient dragon protectors. And as soon as possible, we moved down to Dragonport from Sunflow City, enlisted in the City Watch, and kind of buttered up to the mayor. After making a good relationship, the mayor had recommended us for consideration for training with the Flame Wardens. Now, I kind of skipped over it, but notice, as our 4th point, we also picked up 1 point into sanity. Now, this is a hard choice, because this 1 point could do a lot of work in vitality, as our health could exponentially increase each level. 1 point into finesse or wits could also help us with speed or our defense. But this character is going to be slow. They're probably not going to have a good defense number. We'll have to work at that. We didn't take shields, and we have the 0 finesse. But we're going to hit things really hard, and that's our goal. And then we're going to try to rely on some of our dragon aspects and flame warden abilities to help keep us from taking too much damage in battle. So the next thing we fill out in our character sheet is going to be our secondary stats. We gain 1 spirit from having 1 life force, and our starting level 1 bonus to our class is 2 spirit and 2 mana. So being that we have 1 life force and 1 mind and a +2 bonus to both pools, we have a 3 and a 3 in spirit and mana. Being a level 1 Flame Warden also gives us the language Draconic in addition to the Elvish and Common that we already know. It also gives us a +1 weapon specialization. So we now have our base 5 specializations to pick, +1 for being Vicana, and +1 weapon specialization specifically for being a Flame Warden. So with our core 5, we chose Fitness, Arcane Awareness, because we do study magic and we're aware of that world around us, Navigation, and the weapon specialization Maul, the 2-handed weapon. I'm envisioning holding a really cool big 2-handed maul that has the head of it shaped like a dragon, maybe the hilt is carved like a tail, something cool like that, right? Then with our +1 Flame Warden weapon specialization, we picked War Axes. So we have a 1-handed option as well. Now, of course, we can use any other weapon we like at any time. We're just better with these ones. And then for our additional non-weapon or armor specialization as a Vicana, we chose Riding. I don't know how much this will come into play in this campaign, but it'll be useful. So with our specializations, the way we arrived at these numbers, you can see we have a 3 fitness. This is a strength specialization. Our strength is a 2. If we were not specialized, our fitness would naturally be a 2, but we get a +1 from our life force added because we're specialized with it. If I was playing the game right now, I would fill out the numbers to all these specializations, but for the sake of you seeing our choices and what we're better at, I've only filled in those choices. The same is true when it comes to our weapons. We get to add our core attribute to the main attribute when we're specialized. With Mauls, that's a strength weapon. We have a 2 strength and we have a 1 life force. That gives us a +3 to hit and a +3 to damage. Now I did consider taking smithing here. It could be important to us at a later level. I just didn't see it for this character. Smithing or tailoring could be great for a Flame Warden as a profession. But since our character spent time with the City Watch, I didn't really see him as taking any other professions other than just soldiering. Our base health is 10, and we had 5 choices to make at level 1 for abilities and spells. We chose Reposition, which is going to allow us to disengage up to 2 enemies at a time and move around the battlefield without taking attacks of opportunity. We chose Dragon Aspect. This actually has a 2 mana cost, so it was important we got a little bit of points into that pool so we're able to use this ability. Dragon Aspect can imbue us with the power of an ancient dragon and double the damage of a single target fire or dragon aspect attack. You have to use this before the damage is rolled. Then we took Dragon Claw. For 2 action points and 1 spirit, we can attack up to 2 targets with a weapon we're specialized in. Now, somebody who's wielding just one-handers doesn't need to use this. When it comes to using a 2-handed maul, this is going to be extremely useful. Then we took Sparks. This spell only has a 15-foot range, being medium, but it's 1 action point, and sparks leap from you towards your target, dealing 1d6 plus willpower fire damage. So it's not a long-range cast, but it's something we can just do on the fly without having to spend mana and pepper our enemies with flame. And then for flavor, I took Shape Metal. 2 additional things you receive as a Flame Warden at level 1 are Master of Flame 1. From 1 action point, you can create a small amount of flame for non-combat purposes, and Valixar's Will 1. Once per day, when we use a fire or dragon ability, we don't have to spend the required base spirit or mana cost. Also at level 1, we had a few other choices of items to take and gold. I spent all the gold that I could and got all the relevant items. Now, I picked up 3 torches, a bedroll, I chose the maul, I chose a war axe, I chose chainmail as my starting armor. That's the most defense we can get out of armor at level 1 without having points into finesse. I took 2 healing potions, which for 1 action point can add 1d6 health to us. And I chose a potion of reason. This can give you a +3 to intellect, a +3 to wit, or a +3 to sanity, and remove 2 sanity counters for 1 round. And then I spent all of the rest of my gold on a first aid kit, because Flame Wardens are known for being protectors and helping others. I'm not going to be particularly good with it as I'm not specialized in wits, but it can still be very useful regardless. There's a lot of other things I wanted, like chain and rope and a shovel. I don't know why. It just caught my eye when I was looking through the list of things to get. But first aid kit seemed to really fit the bill for this character. For possessions, my guy doesn't have much. He kind of left everything behind in Sunflow City when he traveled to Dragonport. He keeps a combat journal where he logs all of his experiences so he can grow and become better at combat and casting and protecting people. Or at least maybe protecting the secrets of the Flame Wardens. Personality, I think this guy is loyal. I think he's driven, eager, but also pragmatic. I think he definitely has a line of point A to point B and has a linear thought process as to how he's probably going to solve some things. I think he would also be very helpful. It comes with part of the role of being a protector, but his personality, I think, also lends itself, being pragmatic, saying, well, helping somebody may not be the best course of action in this moment. So we'll have to see what kind of role playing we can do there. Okay, we're off to level 2. We are now up to 20 health. We get to pick 2 more abilities and spells. We get 1 main attribute, and we get an ability as well. So for our main attribute, at this level, I took 1 more into strength, as hitting things with our maul is going to be something we want to be really good at. Putting another point into strength is going to bring our spirit power up to 4, and it's also going to make it a little bit harder for enemies to resist some of our detrimental effects, which will come into play with abilities we're about to choose. This also brings our fitness up to 4, and our weapon and war axe specializations to a +4 to hit and a +4 to damage. For our 2 abilities and spells, we took Dragon Tail and Halo of Fire. Dragon Tail is going to be a spirit spender, where we summon an ethereal dragon tail that sweeps around us in a 15-foot arc and can knock down our enemies. To resist that, enemies will have to roll against our spirit power, so this is important for us. Enemies that are knocked down are going to receive more damage and cannot make attacks of opportunity. I did think about taking Dragon Sight at this level, where we can levitate up into the air and triple the distance of our vision, because I think that fits the flavor so well. However, this time around, I went Halo of Fire. For 2 action points and 1 mana, we can create a 20-foot circle of fire that's 5 feet wide, 10 feet high, and this damage automatically hits, dealing 1d6 plus our willpower fire damage. This is a good ability for this build because we don't have to roll an attack with our willpower since we're not going to be pumping it. So we can really get a lot out of this for just 1 mana and 2 action points. And it's not incredibly taxing on our mana pool. Now, attacks being made through this ring also have a -6 to hit, and vision can be obscured. So we're really going to get a lot of utility out of this. Then lastly, we gain Honor the Dragons at level 2. And once per day out of combat, we can prepare a ritual that will allow us to spend spirit if it were mana, and mana if it were spirit, 1 time in a 24-hour period. This is another reason for us to have a fairly balanced pool, as we have flexibility as to how we can spend. Moving on to level 3, we're going to gain 2 abilities and spells, 1 core attribute, and another baked-in ability. So our base health is 30, because we have not put anything into vitality. This is the minimum amount a Flame Warden can have. But again, as we move up in levels here, you're going to see we're not really gaining defense, and we're not gaining speed. So we're going to be slightly squishier than some other Flame Wardens, but we're at least going to be pumping out a ton of damage. So here we put 1 point into life force for our core attribute. This is going to help us keep pushing that martial damage. This is going to bring our spirit power up to 5 and our target to resist up to 17. This also brings fitness to 5, and our maul and war axes have a +5 to hit and damage now. I did notice here our fortitude should actually be at a 2, so that's slightly better than the +1 we had previously. So here we gain 2 abilities and spells. For our abilities and spells, there's only one option at level 3, so I went back and took Fiery Malediction. We're going to gain +3 to hit with attacks for a combat encounter against a target previously hit with a fire or dragon attack. This is a one-time buff we can put up in a combat encounter. It's also another way for us to spend our spirit, which is up to 4 points in the pool now. And then I did take the one level 3 choice. Although we are not a smith, I took Dragon Armor Crafting. So we can learn to add dragon scales to armor or clothing to increase its defense by 2. We have to work with our game master to acquire these materials because dragon scales may not be found in the open market, as dragons have been gone for close to 2,000 years that we know of. Wait, what? So although we may not be the best at crafting our own armor, we at least now have the ability to increase our defense later on with hopefully not picking up a shield. Maybe we'll have to at some point, but I have no plans of it. This ability is something that may not even come into play depending on your campaign or your game master until later levels. But by choosing it, you want to let your game master know that this is on your mind and something that you wish to be good at and is a part of the flavor of your character. So hopefully within time, maybe by level 6, they've afforded you a tiny morsel. I think there's some flexibility to be used here too. That maybe in earlier levels, they're just dangling small materials in front of you to maybe only add a +1, even though we specifically stated a +2. And maybe something else happens within the story where you get it to a +2, where you have some incremental growth. Again, that's up to you and your game master. Maybe you just want to say, hey, I get the +2 and that's it. I personally would like to work with my game master to maybe see if this could grow over time. Again, in Terramentia, we want to inspire you. We want to be the guardrails. Level 3 also has a baked-in ability called Savior 1. Has a range of 30 feet, and once per day you can conjure a barrier of magical red flame around a willing target to reduce fire, cold, or combat damage done to that target by half rounded up for one attack. This can also be used on yourself. So with our lower defense, I probably plan on using this on myself, unless in a dire situation where an ally really needs me. And our defense isn't terrible for our level. But as we move on, this character really isn't going to be gaining a lot of it. We're really going to have to rely on good items and our dragon armor crafting. Moving up to level 4, we're going to gain 1 main attribute, +1 to spirit or mana, and gain 2 more baked-in abilities. So let's start with the main attribute. Here I made a little bit of a different choice. I didn't continue to push the strength train because we're going to be doing that for the entire life of our character. So being an early game, I wanted to get some other attributes going as well. So again, going back to our Vikana heritage, I figured intellect was appropriate, and that will also help out with some of our casting as well. So I put 1 point into intellect, and this brought our willpower up to 3 and our target resist to 15. Gaining the +1 to spirit or mana, I decided mana was going to be the best choice here, as I wanted to keep the pools fairly balanced, especially since we can make use of the flexibility of how we spend our spirit and mana through our prior ability. That allows us once per day to spend spirit as if it were mana or mana as if it were spirit. This also brought our arcane awareness up to +3 and our navigation up to +3. Now we've gained Master of Flame 2 as one of our baked-in abilities, and for 1 spirit, we can reroll an attack die when using a fire or dragon ability and gain +3 fire damage to that attack. Previously, Master of Flame just allows us to create a small amount of flame for non-combat purposes, but now it's going to help us do some damage too. We also have Valixar Scales 1. We gain a resistance to fire. All fire damage we take is reduced by our fortitude +3. We don't have the highest fortitude in the world, but this is going to help. So now we're actually resistant inherently to fire damage and solar damage. Hopefully this will complicate some things for our game master. Level 5 is going to be a big one for us. And it's a little bit bigger than some other classes because we're going to get access to a little bit more damage kind of one level early compared to others. So again, our base health is up to 50 as we're just increasing by 10. But our other choices here, we're going to get 2 more abilities and spells. We're going to get a +1 to spirit or mana. And then we're going to get some more baked in abilities, or actually 2 of our baked in abilities are going to increase or gain special effects. And then we're going to get an additional one as well. Let's start with our choice of spirit or mana. Here I went mana again, just keeping our pools a little bit even. Plus some of the damage abilities do cost mana to put on there. And we don't need that much spirit to perform amazing dragon aspects and attacks. For our ability and spell choices, we took Talon Strike. Talon Strike is going to pair with the baked in ability, so I guess I'll start with that. Flame Weapon 1. Flame Weapon 1, for an action point and 1 mana, is going to imbue our weapon that we have equipped with Red Flame, adding 1d8 fire damage to attacks made each round with that weapon for 2 rounds. This is an extremely efficient buff, one of the best in the game. I think for level 5, because we don't have our 2-handed weapons training yet, we're going to be using probably our War Axe and making multiple attacks with that just to get the most out of this ability until we hit level 6 and go back to our big Dragon Maul. So how does that pair with Talon Strike? Well, when we make a Talon Strike, if our flame weapon is active, our target must make a fortitude check versus our spirit power or suffer an additional 6 fire damage. Adding this on top of our flame weapon, we're going to be putting out a lot of damage at level 5, especially if we have the chance to use our dragon aspect as well, where we're doubling our damage on a dragon aspect or flame ability. Yeah, desert sorcerers be jealous of us right now. And then for roleplay, I also took Dragon's Might. For 1 spirit, we can gain +6 to a strength or finesse related check. This can be super helpful, especially since we took riding, which is a finesse ability. So if we're in a situation where we need to actually roll for riding while we're mounted, this could greatly help us. Besides making the obvious fitness check for a +11. The idea with some of our spirit and mana spending in this game is that we have abilities like this built in for you to choose, because when you spend that spirit or mana, we want it to be worth it. If you're making a fitness check and it's a very important situation and you're spending the spirit to try and help out, we want to make you feel like you had a good choice and that it was worth the spend. Resources are finite. There's no short resting in this game. Your resources are for the day and for you to manage. So we really want it to be impactful when you do. Now level 5 also gives us Master of Flame 3. So now we gain +6 fire damage instead of 3 when using this ability. Now you can see how our damage is really starting to stack. Again, other classes typically start to get this kind of stacking around level 6 and beyond. So we're a little bit ahead of the curve here. We also have Savior 2. We can now use Savior 2 times per day now, which is great. In addition to our target of Savior being us or an ally, reducing combat fire or cold damage by half, that character can also gain spirit or mana based on the type of damage that's being resisted. So if it's combat damage being reduced, they can gain 2 spirit. If it's magical damage being reduced, they can gain 2 mana. Level 5 is a pretty cool level. Level 6 is a little bit simpler, as it is for most classes, because this is where we really get a boost to damage and our action economy, since we now have 3 action points to work with on our turn. We're going to gain 1 core attribute, 1 main attribute, and this class specifically gets 2-handed weapons training. With 2-handed weapons training, we can now spend an additional action point to make an additional attack when attacking with a weapon that costs 2 action points to attack with. So unless we were really enjoying our War Axes, we now have the opportunity to really switch back to our Maul, which is kind of our original vision for this character, carrying a big 2-handed weapon. When we imbue that dragon-headed Maul with flame, we're going to look cool. So for our core attribute, we took life force again, pushing what we're good at even better. We're going to take a big leap here. For our main attribute, we also put 1 point into strength. This now brings our spirit power up to 7 and our target to resist up to 19. We have a +7 to fitness checks and a +7 to hit and damage with our maul and war axes. Any other weapon we're using that we're not specialized with is going to get a +4, assuming it's a strength-based weapon. If it's finesse, we're looking at a +0. What really makes level 6 great with the 3 action points is that looking at some of the ability costs, you now have the option to do so much more in your turn. You know, if you're making a 2-handed weapon attack that costs 2 action points, you now have that 1 action point to also do a buff or make an additional attack. Where at previous levels, you're going to have to really plan that out. One-handed weapons can offer you a little bit more flexibility in that department and can in some cases make a great hybrid character, giving you more action points to play with between casting and doing martial attacks. But hey, like I said, nobody's going to deny us our big flaming maul on this playthrough. Now, I didn't add in any items given to us by a game master. I didn't add in any gold or any extra things we could have picked up along the way or purchased. Maybe we saved up gold to buy extra spirit and mana potions. But the way Flame Wardens operate, we're probably not going to need too many spirit or mana potions compared to a couple of other classes. We've got some inherent ways to kind of help with that efficiency. And I think moving forward, we're going to keep pumping that strength. And I think the real hard choice later on, depending on the type of campaign it is going to be, do we want to get another point into sanity? Is our GM going to try to make our life hell with sanity checks? Or do we want to lean into the hybrid with a little more intellect to pump that willpower? I think my vision is probably continuing with strength and life force for core attributes. I don't know that I'll put another one into mind. I guess we'd have to really see how the campaign went before I made that decision. But I think at some point I'd be looking to put 1 more point into sanity. If I'm the only frontliner and that's how the campaign shakes out, I may put 1 point into vitality just to help get that extra health to make up for our lack of defense. But by this point, we should be starting to get hopefully some good materials to help with our dragon armor crafting, and we're adding some like dragon scales or dragon materials to our armor. And we've also hopefully started to find some better armor, or maybe saved up gold to purchase something better than just the chainmail too. Hey, thanks for taking a look at the Flame Warden with us, doing this build through level 6. We're going to look to do more character builds and do a whole series going forward here in the future, so you guys can see what it's like to build a character. Maybe after we get enough level 6s out, maybe we'll look at some high level ones too and see what some real power is about. But like I said, look for updates coming soon about our exact timeline. Again, we're thinking that we're going to be getting the game out beginning of 2024. We've got some more cons planned in the future, so we'll have updates about that as the end of the year closes in. And we'll see you next time in the world of Terramentia.